In this module, we will learn how to centralize and enforce traffic inspection using Azure Firewall. Hi, I am Cio Rodriguez. At the end of this module, you should be able to, one, determine when Azure Firewall is required. We In the previous module we talked about NSG, and one important aspect for the certification exams is to understand when you would use NSG rather than Azure Firewall. And again, the whole idea is that firewalls allows you to centralize and enforce traffic rather than using on a per subnet or NSG and that kind of stuff. Um, Although you can use them combined as well. Another important aspect is the advanced threats, innovations, and application traffic that require full inspection that you cannot do with NSG. You will, at the end of this module, you should also be able to configure rules and firewall policy, or at least have an understanding. I mean, you're not necessarily a network guy in Azure, but you should be able how to disconfigure from the security perspective, and that's what we're going to look at, right? And understand the different kinds of rules that are present in Azure policy, like network rules, application rules, the NAT rules, and that kind of stuff. And then finally, you should be able to deploy Azure Firewall in a Virtual WAN hub for centralizing inspection in a hub and spoke and also branch office, how that works, right? So if you have a big company with offices in different parts of the world or the US, then again, Azure Firewall Virtual WAN Hub allows you to centralize all that management. So those are the things that we're going to learn um, in this module. Now, before we get into the portal and get into the hands-on portion of this, let's set the stage over here. So you need to understand, learn when you need Azure Firewall beyond NSG capabilities I just stated, how to configure firewall rules and policies to control application network traffic, and how to secure a virtual WAN hub, or at least understand the components and what to look at for security purposes. So if your company is going to be audited, as a security guy, you may have to provide some information, look into this thing. So you need to be able at least to walk through, or if you are provided with a screenshot, understand what these things means, right? So, and as I said, so the if we look at the let's say the requirement for what's going on over here on this comment, we started with isolating traffic and preventing people connecting directly to the SQL database, that kind of stuff. So this go beyond that, right? Uh, with NSGs, we can filter uh, by IP address and subnet, but with firewalls we can filter by fully qualified domain name, DNS, URL filtering, also application filtering like HTTPS and TLS. We can use centralized inspection in a distributed, not centralized ways as well. Detailed logging and threat intelligence. So you need Azure Firewall for that as well. And consistent policy across VNets and on premises. So if you have a company with a lot of subnets and branches and even offices, then again, definitely you have to use Azure Firewall. It's not that you cannot use NSG, you can use them in combination, but Firewall is the central, those hubs, the centralization of all these rules. So one big takeaway is that you use Azure Firewall for centralized, stateful, and application-aware traffic control and logging. That's one of the key points over there, right? And configure Azure Firewall rules and policies. We're going to take a look at that. Network rules, application rules, when to use each of them. And so we're going to look at a policy overview, some examples of how that works. And obviously the big thing is this hub VNet or firewall hub for Azure Firewall to um, centralize inspection for all traffic between spokes, the internet, and on-premises network for big hybrid companies. So all that kind of stuff we're going to be looking in the next module. So let's get started. We're here at the Azure portal, portal.azure.com. And if you look for firewalls, I'm not sure if I have any here, but I don't have one. But we could just pretend that we're going to create one just to look at um, some of your stuff. And so here we see the firewall managed. So these are the different components that we're going to be looking at. So you can create and obviously normally the network team would manage this thing, but Azure Firewall is a managed cloud-based network security service that protects your Azure virtual network resources. It is a fully stateful firewall as a service with built-in high availability and unrestricted cloud scalability. You can centrally create, enforce, and log applications and network connectivity policies across subscriptions and virtual networks. Azure Firewall uses a static public IP address for your virtual network resources, allowing outside firewalls to identify traffic originating from your virtual network. The service is fully integrated with Azure Monitor for logging and analytics. Um, you would choose your subscription, your uh, resource group. As always, you would put a name um, and, of course, a location, um, whatever this is going to be used. And important is the firewall SKU. And you may be tested about this because depending on the SKU, is that you get the different features, right? In regions that support multiple availability zones, Azure Firewall is deployed as a zone redundant by default and automatically placed across two or more zones based on capacity. If multi-zone capacity isn't available, the deployment will fail and you must select another region. So when you're creating that. So anyway, so not all features are available in all regions. That's for almost everything in Azure. So if we choose the basic, you'll notice that some of the things may change, but so you have basic, standard, and premium. And premium obviously is so the premium firewall support additional capability such as SSL termination and IDPS or the uh, intrusion detection and prevention system, and additional costs may apply, of course, right? In terms of the firewall management, you can use either Azure Policy to manage this firewall, or use the firewall rules. And by default, it's the Azure policy. We're going to take a look at that. So, but anyway, so you would select um, the firewall policy. In that case, you need to have a policy created before you can do this, and choose your virtual network, create a virtual network or use an existing one, and um, you would choose or add the IP address and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you create a new one, then there's a lot more information that you need to provide, and that's how you would create that. But again, that would be the network person who would be in charge of that. So, but if we look at, so here I am at the um, network firewalls, and we have a couple of things. And basically, you want to manage everything with a policy. Very unlikely any company would have only one firewall. You know, just companies have multiple firewalls, and you want to manage this with Azure Firewall policies. So let's take a look at one of these policies. And so first off, you would, when it comes to, we talked a little bit about the different rules, but even before we get there, so in the essentials, so we get the essentials things here, like the policy name, the tier that we talked about, TLS inspection is not supported because, as we said, it requires premium. And those little details are important for the exam. You may be tested on that, in which the requirement is that uh, the the company needs TLS inspection, and then you need to know that you need to choose the premium tier. Here's some, policy limits and rules if you had any. All of that would be here. Threat intelligence. We'll talk a little bit about how to enable threat intelligence as well. And so a lot of useful information here. But if we look at these rules, you can create collection of rules are sets of rules of the same type, whether they are DNAT or network or application rules. And this collection rule groups can include all collections or various types, for example, like in this case. But it's a collection. It's a group of collection rules, normally similar rules. That's basically what that is. The dynamic NAT rules. These rules are shown in the order of execution below. Network rules take precedence over application rules. This is important to understand for the exam as well. So regardless of priority. So if you have, again, network and application rules, the uh, network rules will win within the same rule collection type. Inherent rules take precedence over the rule collection group priority and the rule collection priority. Some information there. You could add one right there. Network rules are, here we are. They are shown in the order of execution. Network rules take precedence over application. We already talked about that. And there's a couple of them over here. And then here we have the application rules. Okay. And remember, the application rule normally it's for application, whether it is HTTP, HTTPS, and that kind of stuff. Okay. In terms of settings, so one of the things we talked about the threat intelligence, and so threat intelligence based filtering can be enabled for your firewall to alert and block traffic to and from known malicious IP addresses and domains. So threat intelligence basically means that Microsoft inspect trillions of signals, and Microsoft has a huge database of malicious IP addresses and domains, right? the IP addresses and domains then are sourced from, again, the Microsoft Threat Intelligence feed, and you can choose between these settings. So nobody has more threat intelligence than Microsoft. Just think about it, whether it is Xbox or Azure or Defender, it's like there's no single company in the world, or there are very few companies that do not use at least some service of Microsoft. So Microsoft is able to collect more threat intelligence than anybody else out there. Um, and here it is. So off, this feature will not be enabled for your firewall, alert only. Well, the name basically says what it means, alert and deny. Uh, and this is where you would configure that. We also talked about TLS inspection, and remember that this is only available on the premium tier, so that's why it's disabled and you cannot do anything with that. The same thing happens with the IDPS, and so if IDPS is enabled on a parent policy, you can only change to a stricter settings. For example, if the parent policy specifies alert mode, you can select alert and deny and so on. So this is alert, signature rules, private IP ranges. Those are the IP ranges. And then you can also create bypass list if you want to do that, right? Um, so important stuff to just kind of be able to look at these things. What else do we have? Private ranges. Let's take a look at the studied guide. So we are in the centralized and enforced traffic inspection using the firewall. And one of the main goals over here is to determine when centralized traffic inspection is required, right? Not every workload requires centralized traffic inspection, but certain threat classes lie beyond the reach of network security groups, as we discussed in the previous module. Consortium security team must present a business case to the security officer explaining why Azure Firewall is necessary for their environment. So they need to focus on protecting AI agents um, that communicate with Azure OpenAI endpoints. So here you can learn which threats NSGs can addresses and how to determine that. So definitely, because of AI and other things, then firewall it's a paramount nowadays. Okay, so if we look at some of the comparisons, so NSG alone is a simple port IP filtering with a subnet. The limitation is that it's not fully qualified domain name filtering, so you cannot use a fully qualified domain name. So if there is a threat based on a domain name, then you couldn't do that with NSG. And there is no threat intelligence, there's no content inspection. So if you require any of this, then there you go. Then you need Azure Firewall, right? Now you could use NSG plus Azure Firewall. So it is best for enterprise environments with internet bound traffic, data exfiltration risk, or AI workloads, which is basically almost every single company nowadays. Of course, they have higher cost and they are more complex to configure. Um, Here are some threat classes that require centralized inspection. Sorry, in other words, that required Azure Firewall. There's a lot of that there, so make sure you read this information. Azure Firewall capabilities, we have talked about this, but you can take a look at that. These are the three tiers that we just saw on the portal: basic, standard, and premium. And so the premium has some advanced features such as TLS inspection, IDPS, and URL filtering beyond the fully qualified domain name. So even more than that, right? So we talked about that. Um, Configure Azure Firewall rules and policies. We're not going to go through the configuration, but at least you need to understand what these things mean. So, but the most important features for the exam are the ones that we have discussed here. Okay, secure virtual WAN hub with Azure Firewall. Now, so you may have a big company. Let's come back to this and let's look at the uh, before we get out of here. There's other so we talked about the policies, DDoS protection. Actually, let me take a look at um, this. Yeah, this is the piece that I wanted to go. It's the network security and then the virtual hubs. So um, on an Azure Virtual WAN hub is a Microsoft managed resource that lets you easily create hub and spoke architectures when security and routing policies are associated with such a hub. It is referred to as a secure virtual hub, and this is what we were talking about. So if you click on this, again, to create one of these, choose the subscription, the resource group. You would have to choose uh, the location, obviously, give it a name and the virtual what name, that kind of stuff. And you could include a VPN gateway to enable secure partners providers, for example, or let's say for on premises to connect to express route, all those things there. And then in the Azure Firewall, then here you choose. So you could enable Azure Firewall, choose your tier, right? Specify all that kind of stuff, and then here you can choose a provider. And for now, you could use Zscaler. Not, I don't think that anything of this is going to be in the exam, but just to be familiar with how that works over there. All right, so yeah, so we talked about some of the different components in a summary. So in this module, we will explore how Azure Firewall provides centralized network security that goes beyond what network security groups can offer. And those are the main things that you need to understand for the exam. So here we determine when Azure Firewall is necessary, right? And it is when you need fully qualified domain filtering, threat intelligence, transport layer security, TLS inspection. Now remember that TLS inspection requires the premium tier, IDPS also, and URL filtering. And so yes, so make sure you go through this thing to understand that, right? And with that, basically you would be able to, um, you know, to pass any question related to this exam. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the AZ-500, there are many questions on the exams that are similar. So if you already have the AZ-500, reviewing that content would help a lot. Okay, because the new exam, of course, has everything on the previous exam plus the new feature, especially AI related stuff. Now, those of you who never took the AZ-500, remember AZ and SC, two different exams, right? But so those of you who are coming new and you never took the old AZ-500, then um, my suggestion is at least look at the material from the AZ because there may be a lot of stuff there, but the new exam covers everything. So, uh, but with the stuff that we have gone through over here, you would be more than enough to pass that. So again, we are here at the something that I have forgot to mention, but so here are all the courses. Normally, in my own plan, the way that I study, once I finish going through all these courses over here, I go through the studied guide to review. So if you look at the studied guide, then you can use this as your um, you know the again the final studied guide. So if we look at, for example, let's see, let's look at the one that we just covered today. And so this is VMs, implement security applications, but where's we covered the Defender for Cloud. No, it's somewhere there. But anyway, so notice how there are specific objectives over here that, it would help you study. So normally what I do again is just go over the whole learn material and then go through the study guide. So anyways, we are here. We have already covered the segment and isolate Azure workloads using network security controls. So if you haven't watched that module or the previous one, then you have a lot of work to do. And we just concluded the centralize and enforce traffic inspection. So um, that's where we are. In the next module, we are going to cover secure, remote, and hybrid connectivity using VPN gateways and Microsoft Entra private access. This is what we are going to cover next. So if you are following along and you are planning to take this certification, this is a must view channel. If you are one of those, I hope to see you next. If you are not planning to take the exam, but you want to learn about cloud and security and specifically how Microsoft Azure and AI security, this is also a channel for you. So share, talk to your friend, share to someone who might be interested in this, and subscribe to my channel, like my channel. Please leave me your comments so that I can improve this and make it better every time. So thank you, and I hope to see you next.